The Clippers, Celtics close out the Magic. Knicks and Pistons still alive, which we will get to because Tom Thibodeau getting ripped for not playing his guys enough, which is the irony of that. We're not a week removed from the draft, so there's still tons of draft fallout, including an interesting conversation about a lack of a conversation. What does that mean? There's a lot of people that believe that Cam Ward has not been discussed enough. Number 1 overall pick, Incarnate Word, Washington State, Miami. And I think that's a great thing for Cam Ward. I think a lot of people are complaining that Cam Ward deserves more coverage. This man came out of nowhere. He has had the chip on his shoulder his entire life, and I think this continues to be another one. So we've seen it. He was not even recruited to play quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. Went to 3 schools. I think that if you look at this is kind of his MO. Now it's time to talk about him, though. Now he's in the league. He's a Tennessee Titan. And we stumbled on an interesting conversation and debate that between us on our show as to what's the comp. Is the comp his draft position, or should the comp be those that succeeded the most at his position? What do we mean? Should he be compared to Caleb Williams and Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick, just like he was? Or should he be compared right off the bat to C.J. Stroud and Jayden Daniels, who were the best at their positions that came out of that draft?
Well, I think he's got to be compared to the rookie quarterbacks that have done it at the highest level, right?
So Stroud and Daniels.
So Stroud and Daniels. And the reason why is when you take a player with the number 1 pick at any position, but especially quarterback, the expectation is at some point throughout that player's career, he's going to be a top 5 player at the position. And so that's why I'm going to compare him to the rookie quarterbacks that have come closest to being on that trajectory, where you can look at them and say they're going to be a top 5 player at the position. Hell, after C.J. Stroud's rookie year, I was ready to dub him a top 5 quarterback, right? We said it was Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes, and I had C.J. Stroud as that 5th guy. Now, I'm not going to say he regressed in his sophomore year, but certainly it didn't take off the way that we thought it would, especially with the addition of Stephon Diggs. Now, that said, C.J. Stroud still got his team to the playoffs, still won a playoff game, 2nd consecutive division title. So there's something to be said for that. Jayden Daniels, Washington Commanders, rookie year, awful situation, even worse than what Caleb Williams had to deal with in Chicago from a personnel standpoint, and gets his team to the Final Four. So when we start talking about the expectations that are placed on the number 1 pick turning around a franchise, I'm going to compare it to the recent rookie quarterbacks that have done that, not the ones that we're waiting on to do it, even though they were selected with the 1st overall pick.
And see, I'm going to go the other way and put him in the Caleb Williams, Bryce Young bucket. And I'm doing that because I don't think it's fair necessarily to put those expectations on him to be C.J. Stroud or Jayden Daniels right out of the gate because of the personnel around him, because of the team. Now, I know Jayden Daniels walked into, as you said, a worse situation than Caleb Williams as the number 2 overall pick and took a team that won 4 games the year prior to the Final Four. That was an unbelievable turnaround. Incredible stuff from Jayden Daniels. C.J. Stroud, same thing. The Houston Texans.
C.J. Stroud was worse.
The Houston Texans were a hot mess. Awful. They were arguably the hottest mess in all of the NFL. And he went in there and stabilized it. And we didn't know what DeMeco Ryans was going to be, but he ended up being an incredible coach and an incredible asset for C.J. Stroud, and now we're watching those two grow together. But I look at Caleb Williams last year, and heading into the season, we talked about this could potentially be the best situation that a rookie quarterback has ever stepped into. This is a guy that for years we've tabbed as a transformational, generational type quarterback. So we expected him to have the success that we saw from C.J. Stroud. But at the end of the day, he's a rookie, and it might take him a while to become that player that we all anticipate him to be. And I think you're right, Evan. I think it is good for Cam Ward that there isn't as much hype around him being the number 1 overall pick this season as it was Caleb Williams last year, because he could eventually ascend to being that player that we all expect him to be. But what do we expect the Titans to win? 5-6 games this year? Maybe he exceeds that. Maybe he does. But I'm not going to put those expectations on him year 1.
Can I just make one comment about DeMeco Ryans? I don't remember the last time his name was uttered on our show. That man is 40 years old. He went 10-7 2 straight years, and he's 20-14. I just wanted to give him a shout out because he's never talked about as one of the best coaches in the league.
He's awesome.
He's never been bad. I know it's 2 years, but let's just shout that guy out, because We shouted out we shouted out Cliff Kingsbury yesterday, who's an assistant coach with Washington, more than we shout out DeMeco Ryans, who's part of this conversation. I understand it's about the quarterbacks. I just want to shout that guy out because that's a hell of a start to his career. Now, separately, I would compare him to the number 1 overall picks for this reason, instead of the best at the position. I think that Jayden Daniels and C.J. Stroud have just made everybody look bad. They're abnormally unbelievable at the as rookies. And I think you could have a great rookie season without living up to Stroud and Daniels, because they are elite-level quarterbacks upon arrival. That is so abnormal over the course of forever in the NFL. If I told you, hypothetically, that Cam Ward this year had 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and they won, would you say 6 games?
5-6 games.
Let's go the higher end. 6 wins, so 6-11 for the Titans, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. What are we saying?
Probably firing the head coach.
That didn't go where I thought it was going to go. I would.
You asked me what we're saying. I'm saying, yeah, they're probably saying we're going to get a different head coach in there.
Okay, that they may want to do that anyway, but I guess what I would tell you is I still think that's a satisfactory start to a career for a number 1 overall pick, and it's nowhere close. And that's what Caleb had last year, 20-6, and it's nowhere close to Daniels and Stroud.
I can't say it's a good start to your career as a rookie quarterback when your play indirectly leads to, or directly leads to, your head coach being fired. Sorry. Can't say it's a successful rookie year when your head coach gets fired.
So instead of comparing Cam Ward to previous number 1 overall picks or the greatest rookies ever, the real success or comparison has to just be Brian Callahan's employment next year. The year after next, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the singular goal for the number 1 overall pick, is to ensure that his coach is employed in his second year.
Yeah, that's interesting, because if they win 6 games, they were 3-14 last year. You've doubled your win total from a year prior, which would seemingly be a success. But when you compare him to Jayden Daniels and C.J. Stroud, that does not seem successful. So, yeah, maybe we need to reframe the parameters on how we're going to view whether or not Cam Ward has a positive year 1 by the stability of the organization moving forward.
Yeah, if Brian Callahan is the head coach in year 2, that means that Cam Ward had a successful year 1. Like Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, not successful year 1s. Their head coaches got fired. Both of them.
But see, I view some of that as organizational issues and not necessarily on the quarterback.
I'm not saying that the organization's dysfunction doesn't play a role, but you're stepping into a bad situation. The Washington Commanders were considered a dysfunctional franchise until they weren't, because of Jayden Daniels stepping in. The Houston Texans were considered a dysfunctional organization until they weren't, because C.J. Stroud stepped in. Same general manager is there, even though they hired a new head coach. Nick Caserio been there. But they got DeMeco Ryans, they got C.J. Stroud, and away we go. So I can't call it a successful rookie year if your head coach gets fired. And that's why the bar to clear for me is not